guys, here today for Lawnfawn, and for today's project I'm going to be using the brand new Beam Me Up stamp set with quinine dies, as well as the Cloudy Hillside pop-up add-on set. And I'm not going to be using those to make a pop-up card, I'm just going to be using those as borders. And then I'm also going to be creating a slider card, just a little mini one, and I'm going to be using the slide on over dies for that. So to begin, I'm going to stamp out my images using some jet black ink onto some neenah solar white cardstock. So I'm just choosing quite a few of the images from the set. I believe I end up using all that I stamped and coloured as well, but basically I just wanted to stamp a little selection with a couple of sort of birthday themed items. Then I decided to pull out of this world and also stamp the rocket and earth because it's going to go sort of along, I guess, with the sentiment I'm going to use. And then it wouldn't be a birthday card if I didn't pull out party animal for the balloon, so I went ahead and stamped out that as well. And then for my last bit of stamping, I'm going to use the little like light shining piece that comes down from the little UFO, and I'm going to stamp that onto some vellum with some stazon ink, as well as the little like stitched or dotted lines coming down from the light as well, just to give it a little bit more interest. So once I finish stamping all of my images, I can begin colouring. So I'm just doing the same technique that I do all the time with my acrylic colouring, and I'm just going from dark to light. That's what works best for me. It doesn't take too much time, and I just really love it. So I'm just going through and I'm colouring all of my images in. I'm sort of following a colour scheme that I found on Pinterest, just sort of for like a galaxy space themed card, and I sort of pulled in a lot of my favourite colours, so it's probably, you're probably thinking that this is not like much of a different colour scheme that you normally use, but what I love about using different colour palettes and things is it gives you maybe different shades of colours that you really like to use. So like here it gave me sort of like a bluey violet sort of colour rather than just a blue or a purple, so that sort of brung in a different colour combination that I could use on this project. And then also with the same sort of dealio with the yellow here, it's more of like a goldy yellow, I suppose. So that sort of brought in a different kind of yellow rather than just the bright yellows that I normally would use. So that's what I really love about using different color schemes. So now that I am colouring in with the yellow, I need to sort of add some onto this little vellum light shining piece here. So I'm just flipping it over and colouring the Copics on the back, using all three colours, but also using the zero marker to blend it out. And if you get any of that colour on your like blending marker, you can just scribble that off onto some cardstock off to the side, and that works perfectly. So it cleaned it right off, and it will be perfect for use for other things later on. So then I'm just going on and finishing up the colouring, just sort of using some of the same colours that I used before. Once I sort of get a feel for the images that I'm colouring, I can sort of feel like where I maybe need more of one colour. So that's sometimes why I go back to colours I previously used, because I feel like I can use them a bit more and it's not too repetitive of the same colour. So now that I finished colouring in all of my images, I did use the quinine dies and cut all of my images out, and I'm sort of just arranging them on my mat here to sort of see how they're going to look, and then I can set them off to the side. So next up is time to create my background. So I'm just pulling out some Distress watercolor cardstock. This is just my favorite for blending. And to start off, I'm first going to die cut some of these cloudy border pieces out. Just of a piece, I just sort of wanted the whites, I guess, to match from like the clouds and the background. It's not really necessary to use watercolor cardstock here, but I just did for that reason. But as I said, it doesn't really matter. So I just went ahead and cut both of those pieces out of my watercolor cardstock and then just layered them up. And now I can work on my background for my sort of galaxy space themed card. So I'm using 4 colours of Distress ink. You can probably just like get away with using 2 here, but because it's going to be such a small area, but I really wanted a nice gradient, so I decided to use all 4. I'm using Black Soot, then Chipped Sapphire, Blueprint Sketch, and Salty Ocean at the very bottom, and just working my way backwards and forwards through those colours to get a nice blend. Next up, I am just spritzing the background with some drops of water and then picking that up with a paper towel and drying it off with a heat tool. Once my background has all dried, I'm just going to run this piece through my Big Shot machine with a stitched rectangle die, and then I'm going to repeat the same process for both of my cloudy borders, and that's just because I want them to have the same stitching detail on each sides of the die cut pieces. So I just went ahead and ran that one through my Big Shot as well, and then I'm just going to repeat the process with the little smaller cloud die cut here as well, just because you are going to see some of that right hand side, and so I wanted it to match the stitching. So once I went ahead and completed my background, I can begin making my little slider piece. So I've just brought on over the slide on over dies, and I'm just going to use the little straight edge one here and line that up just using my T-square ruler. I sort of need to use the UFO and this little shining light here as sort of a guide to see where I need to die cut out that slider piece there. So I'm just sort of going to line the slider piece up on my background and then lay over the UFO and that light piece just to sort of get a good idea of where it needs to die cut so my images doesn't get stuck while I'm sliding it over. Then I just line that up using a T-square ruler so it's nice and straight, and then ran that through my Big Shot machine. Now I'm just adhering down my little cloudy borders. So I've popped up the sort of the front piece on some foam tape and then adhered the other piece in the background flat, and that's just so my little UFO piece here can slide right on over it quite easily. Then I just adhered my little green alien inside the UFO just by cutting off his feet, then adhered the light shining piece onto the back of the UFO, and also used a tiny strip of adhesive that you can barely see to adhere the alien onto the back of the vellum piece. And that is the main reason I used the vellum, just so you could see the little alien shining through there as he's being like sort of lifted into the UFO. I thought it was kind of cute. Then to assemble my slider, I just cut a rough circle out of some white cardstock, adhered it at the back of the slider piece, added a little plastic slider piece, you can also use a coin, and then adhered my alien UFO piece over top so it all adheres together, and then I can slide my slider back and forth, and it's super duper cute. Looks like he's sliding away or flying away from Earth or into the sky or whatever you like. I just thought it was super cute. So then I just went ahead and adhered down all of my images down onto my card. I used the little rocket and Earth in the little top hand left hand corner and just adhered that down with some flat adhesive, and then used a little bit of foam tape to adhere my group of aliens with their balloon and their presents and cake. Sort of seems like the little alien is flying away from Earth to come and visit his friends to have a birthday party. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of a cute little scene, and to add the little Earth and rocket ship there I just thought was sort of even cuter. So once I adhered down all of those pieces together, I'm just going to work on the sentiment. So I die cut or just cut down 2 little strips of black cardstock, and there's one thicker, one thinner. I wasn't sure what one I wanted to use, but I did go with the thinner option, and I just white heat embossed the happy birthday to my favorite earthling sentiments on there, just separate. They do come separate in the set, but I wanted to make sure they stayed like that so I could cut them apart easily. So I just went ahead and sort of adhered them sort of at 2 diagonals onto the bottom right hand side of my card. It's just a little bit quirky, a little bit fun, a little bit different, and I just think like this card, especially for like a child, they would get a really good kick out of this card. I just think it's super cute, and having that sentiment sort of wonky just adds a sort of another like magical, or not really magical, but sort of like quirky element to the card. So then I just went ahead and used the Perfectly Plaid Chill paper pad. This is honestly one of my favorite paper pads, and I just cut down a piece of a navy plaid cardstock in that set, and I just cut that down to the same size as my card base, so 4 inches wide by 5.5 inches tall, and adhered my panel down using some foam tape just to give that a little bit of a lift so the slider would be able to slide back and forth really easily. Then I just went ahead and adhered that entire panel onto a card base, and that pretty much finishes up the card for today. So if you wanted the slider piece to slide back and forth a little bit more freely, you could definitely add 2 layers of foam tape, but I'm quite okay moving the slider around with my finger. But if you do tap the card back and forth, it definitely does move by itself. Super cute. I really love this card design, and adding a little slider element with these sort of alien stamp sets is super duper fun. So that finishes up my card for today. I hope you enjoyed and got inspired and are loving the new release just as much as I am. All of the supplies will be listed down below and also over at the blog, and I will catch you all next time. Thank you so much for watching.